Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under, the weekend review. My name's Anthony McGuire and I'll be hosting tonight alongside Paul Massey as we digest another trouble performance with Celtic when they took on Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, unfortunately coming away with a 2-1 defeat. Sean's unavailable this week, so he sends his apologies. Paul, how have you been non-football related?
Yeah, been good over the last week. Been pretty busy. It's that kind of. I think I probably said a similar thing last week. So silly season's well and truly in flow. Although I have got back to playing a little bit of six-a-side, so I think I've played twice in the last 3 weeks, and I'm going to be back on the pitch tomorrow night. So first week was pretty sore. Last week not so bad. Ready for this week. I forgot myself to go back just in time for a Christmas drink, so I usually organise the Christmas piss up, and that starts. That is on Friday. So after about a 9-month sabbatical, got myself back a month before the Christmas party and organised that. So yeah, pretty good. So that football is going well and quite fun. Unlike last night, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately, Allen keys are a big part of my life at the moment, assembling all manner of furniture. Don't recommend it. And I thought my release was going to be sitting down at a nice prime 8 p.m. kickoff Perth time to watch Celtic take on Kilmarnock. Also managed to do my debut on a Celtic State of Mind. So if you want to see my thoughts and even pre-match thoughts before the game happens, feel free to check that one out. But yeah, it didn't quite go according to plan. The Brendan Rodgers Rugby Park Hoodoo continues. That's now 4 defeats for Brendan in his 2 stints at Rugby Park. Obviously, we suffered an earlier defeat and exit from the League Cup at the hands of Kilmarnock earlier this season. Interestingly, I went back and had a look at the team lineup on that day, and there was actually 7 changes from the team that took on Kilmarnock yesterday. As we're recording, this will obviously go a day later, but missing from the team, Maeda, Kyogo was obviously on the bench, Abada's injured, Holm has been left out of the squad entirely. You had Lager Bielka and Maja Narovski, which was actually his last game before picking up an injury on the plastic surface, which we'll touch on. And Tony Ralston was playing at right back. So 7 changes from that side. Paul, first question. The side that did come out on Sunday, was there any sort of red flags there? Was there anything there that you thought, oh, I don't know about that? Or did you think it was pretty much the team picked itself based on the second half or the final 30 minutes against St Johnstone and the relatively good performance against Hibs at home?
Yeah, so I look, the team was pretty much as I expected. That doesn't mean it's what I would have liked to see. We were all almost sure that CCV wouldn't be risked. Rogers played, he played his cards close to his chest and said, he's come through the scan okay, but then he's nowhere to be seen in the squad. So clearly they weren't willing to risk him. And that seems fine with, bigger games to come. But then it's who replaces him, and given, who's been on the bench consistently and obviously filled in for him when he had to step out of the game the other day. Nat Phillips gets the start. I shared this in group chats prior, gave me the fear that he was starting, and so it came to pass. I thought Mikey Johnson was a bit lucky to keep his place. He sort of has fits and bursts, and yes, he shows a little more attacking intent than some of the others, but when you're sitting with your best striker, arguably your best player, on the bench, you sort of think, well, can you find, rather than accommodate a winger who's had umpteen chances and hasn't really produced a final product, surely you must be able to tweak the system to find a way to get Kyogo in the starting line. So my preference would have been either play Kyogo off the right, but more of a free role, just let him kind of do what he wants, or sort of sacrifice a midfielder and play him sort of, up near O, as has been happening when O's been coming off the bench. But neither of those things happened. Tomoki Owata deserved his place on the back of his previous performance, as did O. No real no real complaints about those two, retaining their place. So for me, it was really, flip a coin on Mikey Johnson, try and find a way to get Kyogo in the team, and I had concerns about Phillips. The bench was also a bit quirky. Not that we saw him, but Alexandra Bernabe is back on the bench. To what end, I'm not sure, since the week before Ralston were replaced Taylor at left back. So strange one to me. Nice to see Ravroshki finally make a squad, but I'd have much rather than him being on the pitch, albeit obviously that's where he got last injured. Yang, from being out in the cold, he's back in, and then he gets game time, which, given how poor he was in the two previous games, I found that a little bit strange. I just feel like, yes, we're stretched at the moment, but there's no real identity to this team. There's no real, I don't think he knows of who's fit, who's good enough, who should be in there. The bench chops and changes every week. No Tilio again, completely missing in action. And given where Yang's confidence must be, that's a surprise as well, or is it because he's, had a long-standing injury? We don't want to risk him on the plastic. There's all these sort of variables floating around, but that team just doesn't fill you with confidence whatsoever. You look into your bench and you're bringing on Yang and Forrest to try and impact things. Yeah, Kyogo, but then you bring him on and you don't service him. His first touch, and we're jumping ahead here, but his first touch is 10 minutes after he comes off the bench, and it's inside our box as a defensive header. He only has 4 touches in the time he's on the pitch. Ludicrous, right? Like, just madness. So there was a lot to be concerned about, obviously, the whole performance, but I think that the team and the squad just was a bit of a strange one all round. But as I say, based on what Rodgers has been doing of late, not a huge surprise at who was selected.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on one hand, you're sort of trying to say, well, he's trying to show a bit of consistency, sticking with Awada in the middle. Devin Mikey Johnson, another start, even though his game against Hibs was okay without being, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. It was just okay. So I can sort of almost understand the rationale. And then I'm sort of saying, well, if it's not him, then who? And then, his Yang had miserable performances a couple of weeks ago, so you're sort of thinking he would definitely be off the bench. He wouldn't throw him straight back in for a start. James Forrest, that hasn't really necessarily worked terribly well for us recently, so I can see, that's not really necessarily an option either. So, yeah, I mean, then you're sort of thinking, do you play Kyogo on the wing, or do you modify your lineup a little bit? Do you maybe use Taylor and Johnson more as sort of in a wing back type sort of situation and play with 2 up front? All things that you'd like to think that Rodgers is at least thinking about, if not actually going to sort of carry out. I guess for me,
the thing,
obviously,
sorry to interrupt. The thing on that as well is, if you do that, you can pull a Wata into the central. You can play him basically 5-10 yards further back and play him in the middle of a back 3. And he retains his place. He can dictate play from there. And if you free up the opportunity to get Kyogo on, I don't know. For he's supposed to be a tactical mastermind, right? We all this about his in-game management and willing to change things. We didn't see any of that second half. It was abundantly clear from almost minute 1 when they came out on that second half that they were bang up for it. They'd changed their intensity. We were miles off it. We were losing out in midfield, although we apparently had an extra man in there. You wouldn't have known it. The defense, pretty much all of them, even AJ had a pretty poor game, best of a bad lot. But they looked, flustered and rabbit in the headlights a lot of the time when they were put under pressure. So yeah, lots and lots of concerns. But we've probably jumped ahead again.
Well, you jumped ahead, Paul. What I was actually getting at just before that. All good. What I was trying to say was, my concern was, obviously CCV was rested / doesn't play on plastic surfaces. Whatever the excuse / story is, but our defensive record when he doesn't play, we've lost. The 5 domestic games that we've lost in the last 2 seasons or whatever it is, he's not played in any of them. So I mean, how does our defense just fall apart missing one player. And I mean, obviously he's a very good quality centre half, but where's everyone else in the team? Like, where's Joe Hart? Where's your fullbacks? You know, it's a unit. It's not one player. But whenever he leaves the team, we seem to go to water at the back. And you know, I said at halftime, you know, we rode our luck. Those couple of chances that Kilmarnock did get late in the first half, and it gave me absolutely no confidence that we were going to keep a clean sheet. You know, let's talk about it. We started the game reasonably well, and on a plastic surface, the weather wasn't great. Probably the fact that it was raining probably helped the surface to start with. The fact that the ball was moving around reasonably well on that sort of surface, so you couldn't really fault the first 20 minutes. We were up and at them. We were playing forward passes. We created some, you know, I'd say probably early doors, maybe a couple of half chances, turning into a couple of good chances that was probably the primary culprit. There was the one that Mikey Johnson laid across, which all he had to do was get a touch on it, and he's missed it completely. And then the other one where Mikey Johnson, in fairness, makes a good run inside. His first touch, debatable whether he was trying to trap it himself or whether he was passing it to but he's
a miscontrol.
He set it up for and O's skied it into row Z. So I mean, yeah, he's got to be hitting the target at least. So there too, I feel decent, you know, good chances. And I'm sure you can remember others, Paul, and we'll come to that in a second. But you're sort of getting to that 25-minute mark, and you're thinking, God, the only thing that we're missing here is a goal. Like we've created some gilt edge chances. We're putting Kilmarnock to the sword here. You hope it doesn't come back to bite us, but you're thinking we need a goal. And obviously we get the goal. Come back to that. And then Kilmarnock just sort of realise that they're in a game and start to like take the shackles off, and so all of a sudden put us under, a little bit of pressure. And I didn't feel that we dealt with it terribly well. I mean, goalmouth blocks and bit of a scramble, and they hit the bar. And I'm thinking
that's right before the goal. That's literally.
Sorry, apologies.
Yeah. So
right,
Armstrong, Taylor goes, missing again. He waltzes in. He should do better. He should do better. It's a good effort, but it comes back off pretty much the junction. And then, we're able to clear it. But it's a pretty routine cross in at the back post, and everybody misses it except for Armstrong, who terrorised us, and particularly Greg Taylor, all night long. Now, he's a decent player. He's a decent player at this level. But I think he looks better at this level because of who he's up against. He's
our only left back, Paul. Like, we haven't got anybody else at the moment because Bernabei's on the bench. But I mean, like you say, talk about out the cold. And then
here we go. Would Anthony Ralston have been any worse than that?
Well, I don't think he would have. Well, no. And then the other thing you've got here is that he didn't even take Greg Taylor off anyway. Like, Greg Taylor was having a terrible game.
He was, and it's been it's an ongoing issue, and we know it is. We should do blah blah blah. But there was a period there, quite a few games ago, and for a few games where I felt like Rodgers had sort of gone, right, he can't play left back as I would want my left back to play, so we're gonna let him invert because he looked great at that for 2 seasons. So let's do that, and we'll have to cover elsewhere. And we played, that pretty much worked quite well in those games. And for some reason, he just seems to have reverted to going, we need to play as a normal left back, which he's clearly incapable of.
Would you say that's maybe? Would you say that's maybe because Maeda's out of the team at the moment?
We certainly got less. Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, that's a fair shout. Well, yeah, because Palmer's good on the forward press. I think Palmer's good on the forward press, but he doesn't work back. Once it goes past him, he's jogging or not even bothering, right? Whereas Maeda plays fullback half the time. But to be honest, Maeda's been playing on the right a lot, right? So he's not had that protection. Maybe because he was used to that protection previously with Maeda being on the left, sort of hid some of those deficiencies, I guess. But like there's people been calling for Scales at left back for a long time, and I was very, very, very resistant to that. But it's got to the point where you can't keep Taylor in there. You just can't. His confidence is absolutely shot. He's not running. He's not even chasing back anymore. And when he is back, he's getting done again and again. His awareness for cross balls is all over the shop. Every team is targeting him now. Every single team we play,
I was just about to say. Yeah,
is picking on. Is going. That's the weak link in that team. We'll hammer that side, and eventually we'll get some joy. So for me, he can't keep playing there. Certainly not without maybe a change of shape or some extra support around him, and then that leaves you lopsided potentially elsewhere. So for me, he just got to come out, and maybe you need to experiment with Scales at left back now that Narowski's coming back to fitness. That's potentially one option. Or we go 3-5-2 and play a winger and
play
play 3-5-2, and I was going to say you could play Bernabe as more of a winger as opposed to with some idea of how to play at left back, even though he's pretty poor, or at least give him that on a rotation. Solve some of your winger problems as well, albeit you probably have to move Palmer to the right if you wanted to do that. Or he might have to drop out or play in the hole or something, because obviously, where does Johnson play? Johnson plays on the right-hand side of a back three for Canada. So you could keep him there. You could play CCV. You wouldn't even have to bring the Narowski back in. It gets rid of Phillips as well, which that'd be a huge blessing. Or you're right, play Ralston. It's not even his natural side, but at least he's got tenacity, wins a tackle, good in the air, decent height, and good in the air. So you can't then strong, up for the battle. Tenacity to if he gets beaten, he'll tear back to sort it out. Like for their winner, Taylor's miles up the pitch and then jogging back. He only makes it to the 18-yard box as the ball's hitting the net. Awful. Absolutely awful.
Very out of position. To take up your point there, just a couple of things. Apart from Callum McGregor, he's played the most amount of minutes of anybody. So I mean, you'd right to say, well, is fatigue a factor? The fact that he has to play every minute because there's not really a backup or a clear and obvious plan B or other option. And then the second thing is maybe he's saying, well, I can basically do what I want because there's nobody breathing down my neck. I mean, you don't like to think of professional footballers think like that, but then how many times have you seen it when you bring in some competition for your position, all of a sudden players lift their game?
Well, that's what happened when we first signed Bernabe, right? That's what happened. His game went up massively. But maybe there's another bit. There's maybe some resignation that, players aren't immune to what's going on, right? He must know that there's a very high probability that his position is getting, hopefully getting targeted for getting targeted for the January window. Now, maybe some would say that's optimistic that we eventually try and deal with that position after however many years of it not being dealt with. But, so who knows? Look, the other thing, in his defense, the other thing to say is the reason why he came off in that last game, according to a post-match interview with Rodgers, was that he'd been suffering with flu in the week. So to get an hour out of him or whatever it was, they did well to get that out of him. So he might still be suffering a little bit with that. But if that's the case, take him out of the game. Like, he's already targeted for his play. If he's not 100% fit and healthy either, just asking for trouble.
Alrighty, let's cheer ourselves up a little bit. Let's talk about the goal, because it was actually a really decent sort of effort. So Tomoki Awada plays it out to Mikey Johnson, who makes a run inside. He lays it off to Callum McGregor. And then Callum McGregor sells the dummy of the ages and sort of sends three Kilmarnock players going one way. He goes the other way, lines himself up for a decent shot. And Kilmarnock keeper, who's actually to that point, he pulls a save there, and he's actually had a really good game. And parries it down. And who else but Matt O'Reilly comes storming in from an onside position and leathers it home to get us a 1-0 lead, and you're thinking maybe we're going to do this comfortably. Apologies, my cat Monty's just having a massive yelling session in the background. And it was, and that's 9 goals for him, equaling Sema from Rangers. So absolutely adding goals to his game. Paul, what was your thoughts on that bright spark from the game on the weekend?
Well, yeah, as I said earlier, it was literally off the back of the killie chance when Armstrong hits the junction up there, and yeah, we sort of survived that and finally convert a chance after a few missed chances. And to your a couple of your earlier points, the O chance is the chance that's the golden. There's two chances in the same move, right? So that gets his feet in a mess. He should go with his left. In the end, he thinks he's sort of going with his right, but he's not really. He doesn't really do either, and he sort of slips in the process of deciding which foot to use, and he misses it. But it flows through to Palmer at the other side, and yes, it's a relatively tight angle, but he's coming in that on his good foot, at the right angle. He's coming on his right rather than him being right-footed preference. That's better to be coming on that side, and then he doesn't quite get his angles right, and he hits it off the post. So two great chances prior, and we should be at least one up from that chance. Then we survive a scare, and then we score, and really from there it should be tails up. But as you said earlier, that's kind of it. That's probably the peak of the performance for us, and yeah, they sort of have a crack, and they don't get the goal back before half time. In fact, it takes an age for them to get in the game. It's like 75th minute before they get back in. But the warning signs were there from 40 minutes onwards. And yeah, the other chance, I don't know how much AJ knows about it, to be honest. Like, I think he's just sort of flung his body in the way. I don't even know if he's, got any clear idea. Obviously, our neighbours are all over social media saying that it should have been a penalty, where it's pretty much his back / shoulder blade / at maybe the very top of the arm, which, as we know these days, under the handball,
it's one thing for opposition fans to be saying that, but for a certain Sky Sports pundit to be sort of trying to put that view forward, embarrassing. Because I mean,
Monster Munch, let me get. I keep off Sky these days, so I'm assuming you mean the old Monster Munch.
I was getting the live updates while I was doing the Axum broadcast at halftime, and then you could see them, or people in the comment section were talking about it. I'm shaking my head, just doing like, it doesn't surprise me at all. Well, we get in at halftime 1-0 up, and I'm sort of thinking we need another goal. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, but one goal from the number of chances that we had, probably squandered a couple. If we had counted 3-0 up, you wouldn't have argued. Just said, yep, one each. You'd be thinking, well, hard done by. And then, if we'd missed that chance and they'd scored, then you'd be thinking, oh, bloody hell, like, not really much luck today. But you kind of think that most of the Celtic team probably thought the game was over at halftime. Pipe out, slippers on, because I certainly didn't see that performance coming in the second half. And we were talking about this off air, Paul, before we came on, and we're sort of saying this season has really been up and down. We've seen some very good performances. The Hibs game was a good performance. And then we've seen some absolute abject performances. So, we drew in Motherwell, part of the way, against St Johnstone, first half, first 60 minutes, part of the way. And then out of nowhere, we just basically down tools, come out, lifted their game, and we didn't have an answer. If the Ange Postecoglou axiom was "we never stop," is the Brendan Rodgers axiom "we play when we feel like it"? I mean, like, I was just shocked. I'm thinking we've surely got to rally at some point. And in fairness, we unconvincingly weathered that storm for the first 15 minutes of the second half. Like, they must have had, 5 or 6 corners? And we were just skin of our teeth stuff, just getting by. It was whistling past the post. Joe Hart's not coming to claim anything. Chris Sutton's calling him out live on the broadcast. And I was thinking, it's only a matter of time. And then it sort of broke at the 60-minute mark, and it just settled down for about 5 minutes. And I went, maybe, just maybe, we're going to claw ourselves back into this game. And it never happened. And I'm just like, I'm thinking, all right. And then obviously we knee-jerk, we concede the goal in the 72nd minute or 75th minute, whatever it is. And then we bring Kyogo on. And then, as you said already, doesn't get any service. All that service in the first half was tailor-made for the wee man, and yet second half, our wingers are posted missing, our midfielders posted missing, our centre halves, defence, it all just goes to pot. And I just couldn't have seen that coming. And that for me is the most criminal thing about it. Like, yeah, Kilmarnock deserve a lot of credit. Because not only did they get a goal back, but they went for the winner. A lot of teams against Celtic or Rangers, they get a goal back and they're happy to sit back for a draw and take that as a good result. But they went, nah, we can smell blood here and we're going for the winner. And they got it. And we just, it was like bringing knives to a gunfight. We just were not up for it in that second half. And that is a concern. And all right, it might be an isolated incident, but given how the season's gone so far, where we've had, one good performance and a bad performance and half a good performance, it's a worry. And a league that we were crowing about 5-6 weeks ago, where we felt it was in the bag and we had a 9-point lead, and I think there's no way Rangers are coming to get us. All of a sudden, that lead shrunk dramatically, and we are toiling. And well, I wouldn't say that Rangers are any great shakes at the moment either. They're at least stringing results together, if nothing else. Maybe not performances, but they're getting results. So my question, Paul, is: did you see that second half coming? What was your take on the overall performance of that second half? Because not only did we drop 2 points, we dropped 3 points.
No, you didn't see it coming. So where we've played poorly in a first half, you like St Johnstone, you go, well, you want a reaction, you get a reaction, and we got a reaction. They played brilliant that second half, but having put a good performance in for the most part, rode our luck slightly, but as you say, probably at least our just desserts, if not a little bit lighter than we would have hoped. You think they come in, they get a breather, they get a little J up from the boss, and they come out and they finish the job. But they never got started. And the biggest indictment of that performance is just a complete lack of fight. When we go and play in the Champions League and we get blown away by a team with 10, 20, 100 times our resources, you got to suck up and go, modern football sucks. It's unfair. But that's what happens, right? It's, stupid money in the game. They've ruined it. But when we pitch up against teams when we've got more cash or even the same, and all it is, and the ability is the same, and which it isn't. We've got way more ability in our squad than Kilmarnock have, but we can't just even front up in terms of work rate, fight, intensity, all those things. You don't deserve anything out of the game. But the fact that nothing changed, I'm sure you would have said it, but I'm sure every Celtic fan watching that second half felt that if you left things as they were or made the changes that were effectively weakened us, you could have been, I reckon, when he put up the board for 8 minutes, I think you could play for another 80 minutes, and I can't see where we're going to get an equaliser from, or you get that, then a winner. It was just well off it, and he throws Kyogo on as a knee-jerk reaction, but in doing so, he takes off Tomoki, who by all means wasn't having a superstar performance, but it's the kind of performance, and I think we touched on this previously, it's the kind of performance where it's just steady and it's doing a job, and it's doing an important role for the team. Bit like a good referee, if we've ever seen one of them. Good referee, you don't notice, right? They just go
Who are they?
under the ribbon. They don't we don't appear in Scotland, right?
Sean Connolly.
Unless it's a European night. Oh yeah, he's down here. So he was kind of steady away without being spectacular. You take him out of that, and suddenly we don't look anywhere near as composed. The midfield got stretched. There were more gaps. As I said, that the build-up of intensity, and when they were throwing crosses in the box, we looked a wee bit ropey. But Scales and Phillips, for all their faults, are half decent in the air. They're not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but that's towards the strengths in their game. Once Kilmarnock realised that they could play through us and run at us, we were in a world of trouble. because Taylor's hopeless. When he's isolated 1-on-1, and as soon as you, and we've spoken about this a lot, as soon as you isolate either Phillips or Scales and get them on the turn, they're in a world of trouble as well. As long as they're standing, looking forward, and able to see things in front of them and stick a leg out and try and block, that's okay. As soon as you put them under pressure and try and turn them, get them back facing their own goal, neither of them have got. I just think neither of them have got what it takes. Like Phillips, I've no idea. Oh, he must have some bribable material on Rodgers to even get up here in the first place and keep making squads and now be a starter. He's a horrible, horrible defender. And I've been critical of Scales for a long time, whilst a lot of other Celtic fans have had the blinkers on, whether it's, he's ginger, he's Irish, whatever it is. Yes, he's come on leaps and bounds, but it's coming off a low bar. He should be at Aberdeen, right? That's where he should be, because that's where he was heading until we had an injury crisis. He's not the answer. And if he is, I don't know what questions are being asked, because he's a half decent stopper, but you get him on the turn and he's all over the place. The only thing you can say about his performance last night, it wasn't as bad as Phillips, but again, a low bar. Nat Phillips, I have no idea. I saw, and I caught a little bit of you and the guys on Axum at the halftime, and I know I think a comment was pulled up about a few of the players' performance, and the last one was Nat Phillips has got the cigars out. Well, he wasn't asked to do any real defending in the first half, and Kilmarnock sat off him and allowed him to stride forward, probably because he can barely pick a pass, right? The fact that every time he plays from the start, we seem to allow him to dictate the play from the back is a weird, very weird tactic, because his distribution is bang average at best, and I'm being kind. It just but like I say, once the second half realized they could get at him, Bambi on ice again. He did try to do a Cruyff turn at one point in the middle of the half and got robbed, and that nearly lost us a goal. And let's talk about the goal. Like, what on earth is he doing for that own goal? He's done exactly what O did in the same box. He's gone with the wrong foot, right? He should be always gone with the right foot, missed it completely. He's gone with the right foot, when if he just lets it go come to his left, he can clear it out of play. And then commentators are saying, oh, he's got to do something, because otherwise, your man's got to tap into the back post. Both Joe Hart and AJ were between.
Scales was there as well.
Scales was fine. Scales was a little bit forward, but like AJ and Hart were right in the line of that ball coming across the 6-yard box. Where's the communication? I don't know what he's doing. Like,
that's what I said.
Unless he's got a line on, like. We're not going to talk about. I'm not suggesting Celtic players are match fixing, but the performance was bad enough that you would, if it came out in 10 years' time that happened, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it was.
Well, trust me, I'll remember where I was watching that. Look, I'll pick you up on your point. I think communication there is key. Like, Joe Hart has that. Like, where's he in that situation? Should he be coming to claim it? Should he at least be shouting and saying, like, clear it, just a bit of communication. Just obviously he's stretching. Phillips is stretching for it. He shouldn't have went for it. He obviously couldn't get a clean connection. And when you're sliding in like that, generally speaking, it's only going in one place, and it's in the back of your own net.
Well, he's inside the 6-yard box, right? Where else can it go? But like, he just shouldn't be going for it with that foot at all. If he's going for it with any foot, it's got to be the left and try and get it back out of play the other side. And look, we don't know, right? We've not still gone into the footage closely, but Hart could have been trying to shout, but they played together so irregularly that there's not going to be that sort of relationship that there should be between a goalkeeper and the centre backs. And yeah, like I just, of all one of the big, and again, that's a little tangent, but we've got the time, so why not? One of the big things that the supporter, the Celtic support has been saying in general is, up until now, a lot of the blame, if not all of the blame, has been off Rodgers. It's been aimed at the board. It's been aimed at, Mark Law, the scouting team. all at the recruitment team, projects, not his signings, etc., etc. Well, we know for a fact of all the signings, even I say even if it's only one, you can categorically point at Nat Phillips and say that's a Rodgers signing, right? He knows him from Liverpool. So if that's the case, maybe we should be sticking to the recruitment team's picks because they're not as bad as that. They're not great, but they're not as bad as that.
The comment
I'm
that
being
Rodgers
facetious,
made is that it's his personality and his commanding presence that is basically getting him a start ahead of Narovsky and Lagerbielke, who, by all accounts, aren't putting it in at training, aren't showing the temperament or personality, whatever the word he used in one of his pre-match or pre-game sort of press conferences. And you're thinking, they're Celtic players. They are going to be there past January. You think that Nat Phillips is on a train or a bus or a taxi back to Liverpool as soon as the 1st of January strikes, because there's just no way after that performance you can say, oh yeah, he's definitely better than what we've got. And on top of that, the writing was on the wall against Hibs. Did you see him trying to defend that crossball that led to their goal in the Hibs game? That was terrible defending as well. He was all wrong-sided and couldn't block across inside his own box.
He looks like his boots are on the wrong feet half the time. Like he's getting his legs all twisted up. He's all over the place.
There's two things just quickly to say. Is that one, like, is this another case of English Premier League players being bigged up because of the hyperinflated value of their market, and that, oh, he must be good because he's on Liverpool's books? And the second thing is, it was in the comments last night, and we didn't say it on air, but the comparisons to Shane Duffy are, I mean, like, it's pretty, like, it's not hard to draw a line between those two and say, like, that's not totally dissimilar. Like I say,
I'd say Duffy was better, and that's
yeah. Well, Duffy's gone back to the Premier League and shown that he is a defender, and obviously he was having a really bad season, lost his father, etc., etc. There was probably a lot of off-field issues there that was hampering his performance, but you just sort of look at it and go, like, understand that he was pegged in a bit to say, well, I've got to play Nat Phillips because he's the only guy that's been getting minutes, but what is going on with our two defenders? I mean, Lagerbielke was still getting games with Sweden, even though he wasn't playing for us.
Well, he's just been named. He'd been named the defender of the season in Sweden, and he obviously didn't finish the season there, but he was named the best defender in the Swedish league when they just finished up a few weeks ago. I was somewhat critical of him, and that remains. There's no revisionism here. But his record in a Celtic shirt domestically, I think, is 5 games, 5 clean sheets, 5 wins, right? So, like, you'd think your performance level would go up with more game time. So that surprises me. I have got concerns about his pace longer term. He does look like he's maybe towing a caravan at times, but he partnered Scales at Ibrox, and we kept a clean sheet there.
But Paul, the one thing about pace is that if you win your header to start with, pace is less of an issue. And the biggest problem I had on the weekend was especially in that second half, we weren't winning our headers. We weren't going for the headers. We were just waiting for them to win a flick on or whatever. And then we are doing the deer in the headlights, the ball over the head. Then we're having to turn. And as you say, Stales in a running race, turning's not his strong suit. There was just no commanding presence. There was no attacking the ball. We're missing Carl Starfelt. And, Sean, I'm sure if you're listening, mate, I'll convince you at some point, but we have not replaced him. And he was your rock.
Sean would agree with us. 100% Sean would agree with us. He was on the turn by the end of the season. And there's no way you can defend that defense at the moment.
When the chips were down and when the balls were flying in, it was Carl Starfelt's beautiful blonde Swedish head that was getting on the end of things to clear the lines. And you're thinking, yeah, he'd maybe fluffed a pass or he got the ball trapped under his feet at some point, but he must have won that many contested headers that he was worth his weight in gold. And we just have not replaced that partnership with CCV and Starfelt. Admittedly, CCV's had his injury issues early in the season. Stales is deputised. he's done an admirable job, but we need better, and we need, and surely you've got to look at the other players that are there. But Rodgers doesn't sound like he's close to doing that, and that for me is a concern. It's like he's looking at them on the training park and he's thinking, "No, I'm better picking these two," and I'm thinking, well, it's a head scratcher.
The weird thing is he's played them at the beginning of the season, right? He's played them at the beginning of the season when they were fit. They were his first picks when CCV was out, before Scales got his way back in. They were his first picks. And then Navrojski gets injured and Lagerbielke gets suspended because of the Champions League, and he sort of takes his opportunity to reshuffle the pack. CCV comes back. But you're right, yeah, seen him in training. But they'd have to be basically not bothering at all, in which case, get him on the transfer list and get him out. That's
a bigger concern, though. That's the thing, isn't it? If they're doing that and they're just picking up a wage, then that's a bigger concern. It's like, how's that been allowed to happen?
Of course it is, and they've both got 5-year contracts or whatever, right? So there's lots of issues, right? We can't get to the bottom of all of those. I'll tell you another concern I had. Because time is marching on as we predicted before we came on here. Once we got into a rant or two, it would move quite quickly. All you've said in terms of how we defended and not winning headers, all of that is true. One of my biggest concerns about the game, and Matt O'Reilly gave an extensive interview to the press after the match, which the Celtic way ran the full transcript of, which I read earlier. Fair play to Matty O'Reilly for facing the press afterwards, because I'm sure there wasn't many people volunteering to do that. He said one of the poorest things was that they kicked away possession and basically didn't show enough composure and bravery to get the ball down, pass it, and get play our usual game. And he's spot on. Like, we panicked, we threw Kyogo on, we humped it up to O and hoped that something, and we played exactly into their strengths, right? They've got giants at the back. Look, I thought comparatively, obviously he missed a one gilt-edged chance and he snatched at a half chance, but his link-up play and his general play around, the other parts of the team, I thought O did a decent job, particularly first half. The link-up with where he holds off his man, he links up with Cal, and Cal gets that. It's a good cut back, and the keeper just gets a little flick. But for that flick, Johnson's got a tap in at the back post or in the middle of the post. And he did a bit of that. He put himself about. He linked up play. He got other guys involved. He caused their defense a headache. But latterly, we seemed like that we've completely run out of ideas. And we were just horsing it long and hoping to feed off the scraps. Now Kyogo's never played. That's not Kyogo's game, right? He's not gonna feed off little knockdowns. And Young and James Forrest are, they're not. That's not like it's. I think it's just like to me, it just appears to have like completely run out of ideas. And to O'Reilly's point, why don't we just get back to playing our natural game, which is get it on the deck, pass it, get them on the turn, because we did play some good forward passes. We played through the lines well in the first half, and it just felt like we just decided to stop playing football second half. And the more that they got in amongst us, the more rattled we got, and the more we kicked possession away. We just played right into their hands instead of playing our normal game.
I think, yeah. I mean, definitely. The tempo and the style of the game definitely suited Kilmarnock. It turned into an aerial ping pong. The ball was just going up in the air. Oh, yeah, okay. But, like, he's not going to win out against those types of defenders. And it's just not, it's not really our game. It's not our style of play. And I think Matt Riley's right. I think the bravery on the ball went missing in that second half because Kilmarnock went man-to-man. They were right up our backsides every time we got the ball. And I think a few players, they pooed their pants. Like they didn't want the ball. They didn't want the ball, weren't showing. And then once that stops, the whole thing just, it's like cards, the whole thing just falls apart. And then you resort to just pumping it long. And we're not, like I said, we're not equipped and set up to do that. I think taking Iwata off for Kyogo was the wrong move. I would just have replaced the winger with Kyogo. You know, you could have taken your pick by that point with Palmer or Mikey Johnson, because both of them were done by that point. You know, take Mikey Johnson off, put Yang on. Yang got a really heavy challenge. It was like I said last night, it was like an AFL hip and shoulder, like he'd absolutely poleaxed. So it was understandable that he was a bit dazed after that. Callum McGregor took a heavy one as well, and I think that probably hampered him for about 10, 15 minutes. He sort of got back into the game near the end, but I kind of feel that he was probably labouring a little bit. And I've got to say, I thought Matt O'Reilly went a bit missing in action as well. I know he's saying that we weren't brave on the ball. Well, where was he? Because you could count his touches in the second half probably on one hand as well. So, you know, a great goal in the first half. But the concern here is that... Yeah, go.
I was going to say, the other thing he said in that interview was he had the only real chance in the second half and he should have tucked it away. So he took responsibility for that. And if you look at how good he hit the shot with his right foot against St Johnstone, you would say, well, he's got it in his locker to hit a good shot on his right foot, and he wasn't far away. I think, you know, he probably disappointed himself. He would have expected to score. I don't think it's that clear, you know. I don't think it's not always chance from the first half, for example. It's a good chance, and really, apart from the one where Kyogo gets in behind at the end, but the angle's going away from him, I think he takes the wrong option there. Decision making is another issue. He tries to sort of the angle's going, the keeper's coming. He just needs to clip that across the goal and pick out somebody coming in, or maybe it's a defender and it goes in as an own goal. But yeah, maybe he's a bit rusty. He's not played much, right, in the last couple of games. So.
Well, that's Kyogo, one goal in 9 games now, I think. I believe in all competitions. So
yeah, I thought it might be in 12. I thought I read something it was 10 or 11, but yeah, take your word on it.
Well, it's a bit of a drought.
Yeah, the other thing, and the other thing just to pick on there is O'Reilly mentioned that the fact that the players weren't showing, and Rodgers was asked in his post-match interview, do you think it was a mentality issue? And he said no. So, given how he went all guns blazing in the interview after the St Johnstone game, and he said it was the angriest he's ever been, but he seemed a bit just flat,
resigned.
Really, and yeah, just like a bit, a bit more defensive of the players. I do wonder how wise it is hammering players publicly. By all means, stick it right up them inside the dressing room. But I'm not really a fan of coming out and rubbishing your players, especially when you've got no depth and nobody to swap them out for. And you can't, you're still games away from being able to get to the market, right? Even if he's got an Ange up his sleeve and he's got 4 new signings and he knows they're all coming in on the 1st of January, which I doubt, right? I've got no hope or expectation that's the case. But even if that magical made up scenario was the case, he's still got 4 or 5 games to go before then. So why would you sort of hammer and throw under the bus your players? There's a lot of weird, contradictory stuff coming out of him in particular, and it doesn't really bode well for.
It's the old Steven Gerrard syndrome. You can't throw your players under the bus every week. Like, you can't keep doing that. Like, yes, as a bit of a knee jerk every so often, yes, you'll get away with it. And obviously against St Johnstone, it worked. But obviously you can't keep using that approach week on week, because obviously, as you see here, it only lasted a game and a half and then we were back in a hole again. So you've got to choose these words carefully. And yeah, I guess there was a bit of a different approach to the post-match, but he's probably sitting there scratching his head going, like, he probably didn't see that coming. I mean, in fairness, sometimes the manager always ends up carrying the can, but I think the players have got to take a certain amount of responsibility for that performance. I mean, there's no way anybody could have predicted that was what was going to happen. I mean, yeah, you'd expect Kilmarnock to lift it a bit, but you expect us to lift with them and at least give them a game. But a complete capitulation like that, you just didn't see it. I think we should probably just quickly cover the second goal and Kilmarnock's winner. I mean, Nat Phillips just plays everyone on side. Again, Stales probably a little bit wanting as well. But I think, you know, Phillips' position in that situation, all he needs to do is step out and the guy's offside. But again, lack of game time, lack of playing in that sort of back four. You know, again, you give him maybe a slight, not pass, but, you know, a slight sort of caveat to the reason why that looks so poor, but it didn't look good on the eyes. And you know, then you're saying, well, Joe Hart, he sort of got half a body to it, but it sort of slipped under. Could he have done a wee bit better? But you know, 2-1.
So yeah, he's left really exposed, right? He's made himself big. He gets a couple, he gets a bit on it. You can always argue, could he do better? He's left really exposed. I think he's had a decent attempt with a bit of luck. That might just get deflected away, and somebody might sweep it away. We've touched it. Taylor posted missing again. Obviously, miles up the park. They target his area. You're right. Phillips plays everyone on side. I've got a major grievance with the skipper here. Like, he's caught ball watching with the guy on the ball, and it's his man that drifts in behind him while he's busy looking at what your man's going to do with slipping the pass in. The guy's name escapes me. Aberdeen. Anyway, the guy who scores the winner.
Carry on.
Kennedy.
Matthew Kennedy.
Matty Kennedy just gets in. He just runs behind him, and Carl's got no awareness that he's doing it. It's really poor. He's just switched off completely. He's got a free run in behind. Armstrong rolls it in. It's a reasonably tidy finish, and Joe Hart hasn't got enough to get there. And then Phillips is caught between and betwixt. He's kept everybody on side, but he's not deep enough to try and get back round the back and clear something off the line. It's just a really poor goal, but absolutely coming. Like, from as soon as they scored the equaliser, or we scored the equaliser for them, I never really felt like we were going to get a goal back. It was really, if we pulled something out of the hat, it would have been a real surprise. And the longer it went, you sort of thought, if anyone's going to score, it's going to be them. And so it came to pass. Just really, really, really disappointing.
So obviously, midweek we've got Feyenoord in a Champions League dead rubber. I mean, obviously, pride to play for, and a win will get us some more money for the bank balance. Obviously, that's really important at this point. I know. Who would you think? I mean, for me, I say already that Kyogo will start against Feyenoord at Celtic Park. Can you see any other obvious changes to that team that either started or finished against Kilmarnock?
I think CCV comes back in, right?
Surely, hopefully. I mean, hopefully we've got this right, and it's just a precaution, and he's back in, and there's not actually an issue.
Apparently, the scan was clear, right? That's the news that was coming out. The scan is clear, so the scan's clear. It's precaution. If he's not there, if he's not in the team on Wednesday, then the scan wasn't clear, and we've been fed the line. So you'd think, I'm really torn, right? On the one hand, people have paid loads of money for these games, and this is the last chance to take some points. And whilst it is a complete dead rubber, and it's a bit like the Betis game the other year, it would still be nice to get a win and sort of somewhat remove the monkey from the back. I guess that's the side of the fence that I'm probably falling on. But a big part of me would love to just see him chuck second string kids, blood players, just throw a bunch of because one of the things that's pissed me off in this run is we're really thin in the squad, and we haven't blooded a single youngster that hasn't previously been involved. Now, I understand the squad's big, and youngsters like Home that we've just bought and Bernardo that I've got on loan are being rotated in and out. But one of the biggest criticisms about us, no pathway for the youth team, right? Now, obviously, Rocco Vat has made his bed, and the club have taken a firm stance on that, and I kind of back them on that. But we've got kids like that the left back frame. If he, like I said a few weeks ago, if he couldn't get, if we couldn't get the game time during this period until we sign somebody,
it's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. So sometimes, however training looks, sometimes you're never going to get to know what a player is really like until you stick him in. Rightly or wrongly, some players come alive in the live game experience. However much you put, them through the ringer at training, you can't replicate a big match or even a normal competitive match. It's really hard, right? And there's all the stories about KT back in the day who would go snapping into the, when he was a 17-year-old kid, he'd be snapping into the senior pros. But not every kid's going to come in and do that. So there's a little bit of devil on my shoulder that would love to just go like play 4 kids and 5 reserves and leave Joe Hart in goal. And see, throw it all out there and see what, see where the chips land. And if you get 1 or 2 blinding performances or even 1, you go, well, you've maybe found a gem that's, comes out of the mix. The alternative is to get absolutely horse, right? And then everybody goes, that's a terrible idea. But it is ultimately, it's a dead rubber, right? So if we play our strongest team and 1 or 2 of them get injured and they can't play against Rangers, where does that leave us? Everybody will then say you've got to rest him. So
I think had we got a result during on the weekend, then I'd be in the camp of put the kids out and let's see what we've got. Let's give players that aren't getting much game time a game and just see what, like you say, see what shakes out the pocket sort of thing. But I think now the fact that we've just been beat by Kilmarnock, I think we've kind of got to put a strong team out and try and get a result and really try and get some momentum back, get some confidence back. Get a result in front of the fans that, like you say, are paying a lot of money, and just run the risk that, injuries can happen, but I think we're going to try and get a performance and get this momentum, which seems to shift. We were saying game to game, it's now shifting intra-game. It's a worry, and like I say, that's what Rodgers needs to, for anything between now and the transfer window. It's just getting that consistency level in performance. If everyone's putting in a 6 or a 7, that would be all right. But when you're getting players putting a 3 or a 4 in, it's you can't afford it, and it just shows that Kilmarnock, they'd only scored 1 goal in the last 5 games or something like that prior to the match on the weekend, and they managed to score 2 against us. I mean, I know teams lift their game when they're playing the 2 teams from Glasgow, but still we should be ready for that and prepared for that and expect that. And like I said, they should have expected that there was going to be a response at halftime from them, but like I said, we did not turn up. So I think we'll park that one there unless there's anything else that you want to talk about, Paul.
One little point. One little point I thought I meant to make earlier and sort of the moment passed by, but I will mention it, is you touched on Yang getting clattered. 2 little things. How that's not a free kick, I've got no idea. Like, he's got a full shoulder into the head. He's endangers his opponent. At the very least, it's a free kick. It's probably a yellow card. Referee was inconsistent again. It's hardly worth mentioning these days, but we should. But my bigger issue with that is how that was handled by the player and the management staff, right? So it's clear he's taken a major whack to the head. Again, doesn't seem like concussion protocols are going how they probably should. So the safety of the player, it should be paramount. That's one.
Yep.
But whether you think, you've met the threshold for the safety of the player being taken out, it's clear he's not, like, he's still rubbing his head and his shoulder. right through until nearly full time, right? So as soon as you can see he's still affected by it, he's only used 3 subs. Hook him.
Should be off.
Hook him. Stick Bernabe on the left wing and pull Forrest his natural position. That's a really simple decision as far as that. And I'm going, because he's completely ineffectual after that. Like, you could argue he's ineffectual most of the time, but he was certainly, that knocked the stuffing out of him completely. He'd had I'm being a bit harsh. He had a couple of little runs and he showed a wee bit of intent when he first came on. But after that happened, that was him. He was too busy thinking about his pain. He was done. So you're a man down at that point. So open the eyes, get rid, bring somebody else on, have a crack. Just seems poor.
No,
from
I
from the
know
coaching team.
that's a really fair point, Paul, and I agree. The other thing I was just trying to say is with David Munro, the referee, there was one right before half time where Callum McGregor was breaking through, I think, and the come-out player pulls him back. It's a clear yellow card. I mean, he stopped the play, and he just went free kick. And it's like, no, that's a yellow card every day of the week. And again, just that inconsistency. But for me, that was the one I noticed that was a real sort of like that should be a yellow. And then I agree. I think definitely a strong case for that one to be yellow. Not that there was any decisions that affected the overall outcome of the game, but still. Anyway, I guess we should do a man of the match. Obviously, first half, second half, you probably it's a bit of a toss up. But Paul, who are you nominating this week?
I haven't got one, mate.
Haven't got one.
Yeah, and I am going to refuse to give one. I don't think anyone deserved it. It was absolutely awful. Strength on the first half performance, I probably have given it to McGregor, but his performance dipped so badly second half, and he's culpable for the winner. Nah.
Yeah. All right. We'll
and I thought O was okay around the pitch, but he misses a gilt-edged chance, and that's the glaring.
I thought first half Matt O'Reilly was really good, but second half again he went absent as well. So I mean, yeah, it's hard.
If you're gonna give it to anyone, you probably give it to Matt O'Reilly on the strength of a goal and made the run for the best other chance. But yeah, he's the best of a very, very bad lot.
All right, Paul. We're on an hour. Music recommendations. What have you got for us?
Yeah, so mentioned this band relatively recently. Was a single recommendation. This is another single recommendation. They do have a new album coming out in the first quarter of next year. But yeah, a band I loved back in the day and still on the bucket list to see live, actually, because never managed to do that, is the Libertines. The Libertines' new single is called Night of the Hunter. Available on all streaming services since the 6th of December. And yeah, that's the second single ahead of the new album, which comes out next year. So yeah, the Libs are on their way back and in good form. Night of the Hunter, Libertines.
Very good. When I've not been assembling furniture, I've been catching some episodes of Star Trek The Lower Decks, which is an animated series. I feel like it's actually made for me because it's just like really, really oddball, very specific references to the whole Star Trek canon in more of a comedic 25-minute format. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. That's, if you like your Star Trek, you will probably find this quite amusing. And that is
I'll go on TV as well. So one of my favorite TV shows in recent years, Apple TV, Slow Horses is back for a third season. First 3 episodes are out and they're drip feeding the others, I think, every Wednesday after that. But if you haven't seen Slow Horses, there's 2 full seasons to go. Gary Oldman is the main character, but it's a great ensemble cast. But Oldman, who's played some legendary roles in TV, in film mostly, but this might be up there with one of his best ever parts. He's absolutely
give it a 15-second pitch, Paul. What's that about?
It's about MI5 agents that are the Slow Horses are MI5 agents who have properly fouled up in their career, and rather than being kicked out of the service entirely, they're bundled off to this sort of outpost in called Slough House, and the Slough House is the SH is the Slow Horses,
very good.
Slow House. Whoa. And they get up to various spy related issues. It's really good.
Very good. I'll make you check that out. Don't forget to like us and subscribe to us. So YouTube, like the video, that helps with more Celtic fans seeing our content. Follow us on the relative social media platforms at the bottom there. Paul and I are on Twitter. Paul's far more active than me, but feel free to send us a follow and we'll follow you back. I think after that dissection, all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.